Hello and welcome to the next video. This is Axter speaking. I'm really sorry for the delay since the last video which I uploaded on YouTube because there is so much work going on in this wonderful game, Lord of the Rings trading card game. There are so many people working on it every day. It is far from dead. The community of fans is absolutely incredible, especially for the PC and for the Czech community. That's at least as far as I know, where the most activity is these days in 2026. Today's video is going to be focused on a very key element of the game, which is sites, or the adventure path, or basically the locations through which the fellowship moves and the fights happen. So, as always, I will try to take a look at it from both the beginner's perspective as well as the advanced player's perspective. I haven't made any special preparation because this topic itself is so complicated and there are so many things that you can say about it that I am definitely not going to cover everything there is to say about it, but let's take a look at it from the most common cases. That means if you play Fellowship block, Towers block, Movie block, or Expanded, or maybe something like 11th edition and anything beyond that. So let's start with what a site looks like. You can find it here in the deck builder. I highly suggest not anything goes at the top because that offers you additions which were not part of the original game. But let's select Fellowship block to make it very simple. Here in the card type you click on sites, and there you have the locations which you should already know at this point. So let's take a look at this one. I'm going to just turn off this automatic zoom in because I don't like it personally. It's up to everybody, but it's just for my comfort to have an easier time commenting on everything right now. This is a site called Anduin Banks. This sort of symbol you will see in each of these pictures which are from Fellowship block. So that's how you can recognize that it's a Fellowship site. If we removed this, the specification of Fellowship block, there will be a mixture of sites. For example, this one right here has a different symbol than the Anduin Banks which we clicked on prior to this. So everything here is going to have the same symbol. As you can see, it's really everywhere. The number on the right side symbolizes the amount of twilight or the points that you have to pay as a Free People's player when you move into that location. So let's say that your fellowship is on site 7, and you move to Anduin Banks, so it means that you are going to pay 6 twilight. Very simple. There are some exceptions, of course, but let's not talk about those. This video is only about sites, not other cards. Alright, what else do we have? There's a beautiful picture, obviously. Not sure whether there is sometimes any flavor text. There's probably no space for it. But the most important thing for you, actually, even more important than the site number and the twilight number, is the game text of the site. In Fellowship block, Towers block, and Movie block, there are definitely going to be these what are called keywords: river, forest, battleground, etc. So these are not so important if you are playing Fellowship block, Towers block, Movie block, basically anything from editions 1 through 10. It's not that important. There are maybe 2 strategies that really have to rely on it, and those strategies are not very good. Okay, so you can ignore that if you're playing any format that includes editions only from 1 through 10. That's it. And now the vital part, what the site actually does. This is the point where I am not going to talk too much about it from the beginner's perspective, because every site does something else and it would be too long a video for me to cover every site and what it does and what impact it has. So instead, I'm going to focus on a more general perspective and take a look at the crucial sites which actually affect the game very much and can potentially lose or win you the game. There's a very important thing which I like to use as a deck builder, and that is here, almost next to the card type where we selected sites to filter through. There is sort by and you have site number. This is very important because, especially in sets from 1 to 10, it really is important that you have one site of each site number. This is site number 1, so you're going to have one of those. Then you have to click a bit further, or here you can see Brigade is site number 2, so let's have one of those. And we would continue like this, one site number 3, one site number 4, etc. You are always going to have 9 sites. Whatever the format you are playing, 9 sites. So that's why it's very nice and very easy to navigate through when you click this site number sort of filter, because it helps you only select from those that correspond with the current site number that you are working with. So let's say that I've successfully built my deck. Let's take a deck from my list here. For example, this right here, I would have everything already added and my deck is functional, 36 to 36. And now I'm about to select my sites. So what I do every time I build, because sites are usually the last thing I do, and we will get to the reason why. So now I would take a look at it and say, okay, so who do I start with? I start with Frodo, and then I start with Gandalf. So, for example, if I want my fellowship to be stronger, I can start with the Prancing Pony. Now, a very simple example how not to select a site. Let's say, in this deck especially, that I would start with this site. Now, what kind of value does that give me? If I play Aragorn from my deck, it's a companion that has absolutely no support cards here. You can see no Gondor card here. That means that Aragorn by himself is amazing. Yeah? He is going to tank a lot of damage, a lot of swarm potentially, and he's going to do his job. On the other hand, my opponent could have a deck that looks slightly bit different. Let's just take a look at that example very quickly, what it could look like, and let's click a couple of Gondor cards. So this, for example, this, yeah, so something like this. So it's a significant part of my opponent's deck. Or maybe even if he plays only one copy of Aragorn and he relies on the fact that the opponent will be playing the Prancing Pony. So if I start with this side after having won the bit, or after my opponent having let me go first, then he would be getting more value out of this side than I am. On the other hand, sorry, my voice is a bit bad today. I'm just going to take a sip. Right, so on the other hand, if I win the bit with my deck that I showed a few moments ago, and instead I would have here, for example, this side right here. which gets to play Merry and Pippin from the deck. So I would be getting a value, because as you can see there are 2 frying pans, there is an ally that supports hobbits, a condition that does something with hobbits, 4 events that do something with hobbits. Generally speaking, I would be getting more value out of this side than if I had played the Prancing Pony. Yeah? My opponent, on the other hand, maybe won't even be playing these 2 companions in this deck. So that's an amazing situation for me, right? I get to play my 2 companions that will sooner or later get some kind of support from my deck, whereas my opponent not only does he lose the ability to play Aragorn, of which he only has 1 copy in the deck, and thus I would be ruining sort of his free people strategy, because now he has to wait for him. Maybe he's at the bottom of the deck and he will have to discard all of the Gondor cards that he has nobody to play on, right? So that's amazing. This is incredible value for you as a player if you already win this sort of a mind game. That is connected with why bidding is important, because if you win the bid, especially in Fellowship block, and you dictate what the first side is, it's going to have a huge impact. Now, some of you might already at this point think about what to do in that situation from the perspective of the Aragorn heavy build type of player. So let's say that my opponent wins the bid. He's crazy, he has just bidden, I don't know, 6 burdens, and he goes first, and there's this side that does absolutely nothing for me. So normally I start with Gimli and Legolas, who are amazing together. I have some cards on them, but they are not as important as Aragorn. So it's important to know and to start working with the fact that your starting fellowship is not fixed. That means you can decide that today is Wednesday and I just want to start with Gandalf because he's amazing. But the next game I'm going to try and start with Merry, Pippin and Sam, because that's my free will. I can do that. They cost 4 Twilight, which is the basic prerequisite for being able to start with them. It might not be the best choice in this case, because in this deck I have more Gandalf cards in my deck than Hobbit cards, but it's not bad. And if my build is heavily focused on Aragorn, I might as well start with him, right? Especially in Fellowship block, where if you start with only Frodo and Aragorn, you are probably not going to see much from the Shadow player until side 5, let's say, right? So it's pretty safe as well, and the chances are that you are going to draw Legolas and Gimli sooner or later anyway, because if you have only 1 copy of Aragorn in the deck and a lot of cards that you can play on him, then starting with him is valid. It's a legit thing to do, and you are going to have twice the chance of drawing either Gimli or Legolas, because they are 2, yeah, instead of Aragorn, who was just 1 copy in the deck. And there are probably not going to be as many cards that you play on Legolas and Gimli, and so starting with Aragorn in that case is a much more logical decision, yeah? And this generally we are going to apply to everything, absolutely everything, generally, when it comes to selecting your sites. So site number, I didn't even click that, it just sort of was there, which is amazing. So let's continue on. I've already made up my mind. I know that I want to be starting with this side and I want to bid 4, for example, yeah, something like that. That's my game plan. Now side 2. So let's say that I click on this side 2. It only adds 1 Twilight, okay, whatever. And it also reduces the roaming penalty for each Nazgul. Well, that's excellent, because I have 4 copies of Nazgul in my deck, right? But these 4 copies of Nazgul, or these 2 minions specifically, are very situational. You want to play them to punish a lot of companions. Now, what are the chances that your opponent is going to have a lot of companions on board already on side 2? Not very high, right? Plus, this Nazgul works with discard pile, and on side 2 you don't have a discard pile because you haven't played anything yet. It's literally the first site where you get to attack with your shadow. So what I'm saying is, if I select this site to be my site number 2, my opponent is going to have a lot of value out of this site if he plays Nazgul himself. Because a Nazgul build is definitely going to have more than 4 Nazgul in it, right? That should make sense. So this is not a good site for this deck in particular. Very important information now, some of the sites might not matter at all in certain decks. So in this deck, what site could potentially help me? Let's take a look at them, yeah? So this is the first site. While you can spot a ranger, the move limit is +1 for this turn. Okay, so I get to move a lot. That's usually really nice in a deck that has very strong companions in the starting fellowship with a lot of possessions, a lot of support area, and you can deal with whatever your opponent puts on board and make a double move. So then making another move, thanks to the move limit, which was increased by a side, is actually a good thing. But then again, not the deck we are playing right now, so not a good side. This, we are not playing Nazgul, so no, that's not a good side. You cannot play stealth events. We do play stealth events, not a good side either. This one. While only hobbits are in the fellowship, there are no assignment and skirmish phases at Buckleberry Ferry. Amazing. There are never going to be only hobbits, unless I decide, because it's not a Wednesday or whatever, that I'm going to try that crazy idea with starting only with hobbits in this sort of a deck. Okay, well, it's actually the best so far, because there's at least a slight chance that it might do something good for me, if I'm crazy enough. This side right here. Exert your companion or minion to make that character strength +2. That's interesting. I can see a lot of potential here. A lot of people play this site as actually something to help your shadow. I think that's a bad idea in general, because if you think about decks that could use this, Moria, definitely not. Look at these minions. 1 vitality, 1 vitality, 1 vitality. Not good at all, right? Another thing, Uruk-hai. What are Uruk-hai good at? Uruk-hai are good at, firstly, stopping your opponent, and also putting a lot of pressure on the non-hobbit companions. If, for example, Pippin dies, that's no achievement for an Uruk-hai strategy. Not only does it what's the word for it? Does it break the usage of your savagery to match their numbers, because there is probably not going to be the key 5th companion once the hobbit is dead, but it is also going to give you less twilight, which is generally a problem for Uruk-hai, right? So this side could be played in a very overwhelm heavy sort of build, where you play 4 copies of savagery, 4 copies of ambition, 4 copies of breadth for battle, and you just try to kill your opponent by brute strength. Yeah, that could be in some cases playable. On the other hand, the Uruk-hai usually don't have a way of using the fact that the ring bearer is hurt. So if you play this site number 2, it means that you put Lords on the battlefield. An amazing minion. It's very dangerous, 13 strength, damage +1, potentially fierce. And what your opponent does is that he just exerts Frodo twice, takes 2 wounds, and you did nothing on this side, right? So that's why I don't like it. In this deck, in particular, it could save your free peoples from Uruk-hai. So it might be a good thing to play defensively. It's not going to help your shadow, but it might save your skin in case of your free peoples. So it's pretty good, actually. Huh? Next one, exert each hobbit. Unless you decide to start with hobbits, why not? But it doesn't help your shadow in any way whatsoever. This is not a wound deck. You are not wounding primarily. The only thing that is going to consistently wound your opponent is Engquea, as long as he has 6 companions or 5 burdens. Both of them are slightly unlikely, because the way you play against Swarm is that you try to stay on 5 companions, usually ones that support your ring bearer so that he doesn't die to Swarm. So your fellowship is probably going to look like Frodo, Gandalf, Legolas, Aragorn, Boromir. Ideal case scenario, your opponent attacks with Swarm, you sacrifice, I don't know, Legolas for example, and then you replace him with Sam, never going to 6 companions. The only exception is when you have a crazy draw, you draw 4 companions at the beginning, so you just add them to your starting fellowship of 3 and you are in 7. Why not? So this side doesn't help you in any way. It's a sort of a neutral side. I probably wouldn't go for it because it doesn't make much sense. This side is weird because it depends on draw. Each time a minion is played, the free people's player discards a card from hand. If your opponent plays Uruk-hai or Nazgul, then this side is cheap and he is probably going to put on board just 1 minion, which is going to cost you 1 card. On the other hand, if your opponent gives you, I don't know, 10 Twilight, for example, and you play Runner, Warrior, Shaman, you've just discarded him 4 cards. Yeah? So that's interesting. On the other hand, it could be that you draw a lot of companions, you give your opponent 20 Twilight and he discards your whole setup of shadow cards. So that's bad. A risky sort of side, and you have to think about the fact that you play it before each game, because if you forget about it and you just play everything and then it discards your shadow setup, then you've just lost yourself a game potentially. For example, you discard yourself, I don't know, the 2 copies of Palantir that you have been holding, which are going to be crucial for you if you want to defeat your opponent who has an anti-swarm sort of build. So that's a way how to lose a game by this side, okay? This one, neutral again, you don't play many possession and artifact cards in this deck. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to potentially draw you 4 cards. That's the maximum of cards that you are allowed to draw or take into hand in the fellowship phase. So could be good, but chances are you are going to see maximally 1 or 2 of those at the beginning of the game. Your opponent, however, playing the Aragorn build that we have spoken about, is probably going to consistently draw 3+ cards on this side. So it is better for your opponent than it is for you. Thus, not a good side number 2 in this sort of deck. Oh yeah? Yeah, you don't play Nazgul, this is a bad side. Could support your opponent. Your Nazgul don't need to be fierce, not a good side for you. And that's everything from sides 2. So if I really had to choose here, I would probably go for this, because there's not a good chance that I'm going to kill my opponent's fellowship consisting only of hobbits on side 2. So I don't really care if we skip these phases on side 2. It costs 1, it doesn't support any dangerous shadow my opponent could be playing, so why the hell not? It's a good side, okay? And that's how you proceed in general. You try not to play any sides that don't make sense in your sort of a deck. And this is a very hard call, especially at the beginning, once you don't really know what your deck likes or dislikes. You have to use a lot of common sense and a lot of guessing at first, but most importantly, after you've played your first game where you lost because of your side 2, and just get it out of the deck. There's no point believing that that situation is never going to happen again, because it already has, right? So go to the damn deck builder, just get it out and put there something else that looks less dangerous to your deck, to your strategy or whatever. Okay? So that's it, generally. So I would continue. This looks pretty neutral. Yeah, side number 4. Let's put there, I don't know, this, because it corresponds with my weapons in the deck. Could be worse, could be better. Side number 5, there's only one of those. Definitely don't want to play this, because I have a swarm strategy, so no more than 1 minion can be assigned to one companion or ally. That's a really bad thing to play, so instead something that supports Moria Orcs, which I have a lot of, relatively. Side 7 that discards allies. How many of them do I have there? So somebody would usually say, but I have 5 allies in my deck, so I'm probably not going to play side 7 that discards allies. But if you look at the essence of these allies, this is something that you use in a in a consumable way. You play it, you use it, and then it's useless because it's already done its part. Yeah? The same with this. You put it on board and it usually dies the moment the first danger appears. This thing, you play it and you cycle a few cards. Yeah? This is something that you like to have on board for an extended period of time, as well as this. So the way to go about this is not to not play this side, because you have only 2 allies. So if you know that your fellowship is about to move to side 7, it might be worth holding this in your hand and not playing it immediately, and only playing it after this effect has already been applied. Okay? So you've just held Philibert Bolger on your hand, now your opponent did something, whatever, and on this side 7 where you stopped, you are going to play Philibert Bolger from your hand, and you are going to then have his value on sides 8 and 9. That's the way to do it. On the other hand, this side could greatly help your shadow. There are 2 very nice sides on side 7 for this sort of strategy. You skip archery phase, sorry, but your minion, Isengard Warrior, already does that in a sort of a special way. So you don't need that, and this is actually a perfect side for you. Yeah, so originally you would have thought, I have 5 allies, I don't want to play something that discard allies, but in fact those allies don't care when they get discarded, because they are already used up or dead at that point. So it's not a problem to play this side, okay? This is a very dangerous side to play, because you need to calculate with this side's effect from the moment the game starts. It sounds incredibly hard, and it actually is, but the worst thing that could happen to you is that your opponent is on side 7, you are on side 7 as well, and he is moving to your side 8, and he knows that he can stop there and thus more easily survive site number 9 because he plays Moria, and he's definitely going to play 5 orcs, which are going to stop you by this site's ability. So what you should have done is not stop on site 7 to prevent this. You should have moved to this site 8, because then this effect does nothing. You have already done your double move and you are there and you will move to number 9 and you've won the game. But if you stop on site number 7 and your opponent stops you by this site, then you've lost yourself a game and it's bad. Yeah? So it's only for advanced players who know how to work around it. Otherwise, it really can be dangerous, and it's also very expensive. 9 Twilight, so all Uruk-hai and all Nazgul are going to have a good time on this site, because even if you reduce this number by, I don't know, 3, it's still so much Twilight to stop you. A very dangerous site indeed, okay? So I consider myself an advanced player. I could play it, but still I would probably prefer this. Maneuver events may not be played. What maneuver events? Well, potentially hate and potentially too great and terrible. Both things that I don't play and that could somehow threaten my free peoples. The Twilight is almost the same, so I could be fine with this site. Definitely more than this, because it's a gamble. And site 9, I don't play any trackers in my deck. I don't play a wounding strategy, so this is a nonsense. This is playable, yeah? My minions would be cheaper, but if you look at the cost of my minions in average, then I'm probably not going to have a problem with Twilight on site 9, but rather the cards and the pressure that I'm going to apply on my opponent. So this sounds like a more reasonable idea. And that's how I've just built my adventure path and how it is going to function. 1 second, I just have to check something and then I will continue on. Alright. So this is Fellowship block and it's exactly the same with the other formats. So let's say that we are interested in Towers block. The sides are going to change because we are no longer in Fellowship block. So additions from 4 to 6 are going to be there. This is number 4. I don't really know what side is from 5, but whatever. You can take a look at that, do your own research. It doesn't matter at all what edition or what set it was released in, and you try to build your deck the adventure path according to what strategy you play. That's why you do the sides as the last thing. So this is a shadow that actually relies on playing sides that are called battleground. So how do I know what a battleground is? So no battleground, no battleground, no battleground, no battleground, battleground. Amazing. So it's the only battleground so far, so I'm probably going to play it. No brainer. Okay? And also, my free people's wounds. It has wounding cards in it. Like this, some bows, some conditions that wound, yeah? And my companions themselves really like to wound the opponent's minions. So each Uruk-hai that is played must exert. So unless I'm playing against a strategy like this, then I'm probably going to use this side very well. Putting this on board, even though it's exerted, could put 4 wounds upon my opponent's fellowship, which is pretty good. Yeah? And then I continue and I try to find more battlegrounds, because that's what my strategy does. This is a very easy way how to play, how to build an adventure path. Yeah? No battleground. Okay. So here, battleground, battleground. Where do we have another one? No, that's not the one. Battleground, wonderful, battleground. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Battleground. Okay, I have 6 battleground sites. Amazing. My strategy, or the core of it, is working. Now I need to fix which sites are missing. Site number 1. So, what do I want? 4 copies of Aragorn. I don't need to play it from the deck. There could be, for example, this. Exert 2 unbound companions to play Legolas from your deck. Now, normally, I start with Legolas and Haldir here. But in case I win the bid, or my opponent decides to let me go first, then I could start with Haldir and Lorien Swordsman, 4 Twilight together, and play Legolas from my deck, which is better for me. I had originally 3 companions plan, now I'm going to have 4. That's amazing value for me, okay? So that's a good site, generally. The fact that it allows my opponent potentially play his Legolas is not a problem at all, because this is a very advanced thing to think about, and it's probably going to matter very little often, but let's say that my opponent uses this site with his Haldir and with his Lorien Swordsman. So what then happens is I put my Uruk-hai on the battlefield, and either he's going to risk Legolas being killed, or he sacrifices one of his companions, which now only have 2 remaining vitality against my damage plus 1 minion. Very dangerous indeed. So this site, I actually like it. Yeah, personally I can deal with Uruk-hai very well because I have a lot of wounds here, and it could help me if my opponent decides to use it. Yeah, something like that. What other site is missing? Site 3. Okay, let's select site 3. Discards weapons. No, I play a lot of weapons. Draws me some cards. Why the hell not? Okay, another site that I'm missing. Site 8. Okay, let's go to site 8. Here you can see how easy it is to navigate through the sites if you have the site number filter on. Okay, site 8. This prevents damage to mounted minions. I have a wounding strategy. I don't want to play that in case I come across Warg Riders or something that uses mounts in it. Play a Hillman minion or Dunland minion, whatever it's called. Okay, I don't have any of those. It could help my opponent. Not going to play that. Discard all allies. I don't have any allies in my deck. That sounds like a good site. What about this? At the start of the shadow phase, if the Twilight pool has fewer than 9 Twilight tokens, add 4. Okay, realistically, when is the Free Peoples going to pay less than 9 Twilight tokens? So you definitely have Frodo on the battlefield, or the game is over. So that's 1 Twilight. This side costs 6, so that's 7 together. But there's probably not going to be only Frodo on the battlefield. There can be 1 more companion, and this site is going to be used. So 2 companions on board. Then this site is not going to do anything for me if there are only 2 companions on board, because I've probably already won, right? So the reason why you would play this site is if you have a strategy based on allies somehow, and you don't want them to get discarded, and you could potentially play this because it's something that doesn't hurt you in any way possible, yeah? And you don't want this because, I don't know, you want to wound your opponent, you don't play Hillman in your shadow strategy, so this is something like a last resort, something that you decide to play as the last site. I've never seen anybody play it, or at least not somebody that knew how to play the game a bit decently. And there are not many allies that you are going to use on this site. However, if somebody decides to use them in Towers block, then they usually matter, yeah? In Towers standard more so than in Towers block, definitely. There are a lot of good Elven allies still. Okay, and there we have our sites. This is Towers block. Very important timing attack sites, for example site 9. This is why bidding is so important. There are not many cards that punish burdens in Towers block. In Towers Standard, yes, but in Towers Block, not. So this is a very important site for Towers Block, because if your opponent bids 9, then you are going to swarm him on site 9, unless he somehow manages to remove those burdens. So you have to be careful about this sort of attack happening on site 9 if you overbid at the beginning of the game. Let's move to Movie Block. In Movie Block, it's exactly the same as in Fellowship Block and Towers Block. So you select your strategy, you have already built it. Let's find the Movie Block deck. Okay, it's Movie Block check, but whatever. I was playing a bit with this idea because I thought I could play it at the Czech National Championship. It's very consistent, very strong, and it could get me a nice position in the tournament. So what sides I would play here? Again, I would look at my deck and go side number 1. If somebody plays 3 hobbits, it's going to hurt my shadow, not a good side for me. If my opponent exerts his elves, then I'm not going to put hides and all these conditions on board easily, not a good side for me. This helps Gandalf, I don't play Gandalf. This helps Rohan, I don't play Rohan. This helps dwarves, I don't play dwarves. So the only thing left is this. Each Gondor companion is Defender +1. I have a lot of Gondor companions in the deck. My minions don't care about Defender +1. They are going to win in other ways than Swarm, most probably. So this is a good side. And this is the common sense that you apply to whatever side you are picking, because it really comes down to this at the professional level of this game. If we can talk about that in 2026, nobody really makes a living out of Lord of the Rings trading card game, but there are a lot of situations when you can play this game at a very high level, and these details are going to matter. You don't want everything to be draw dependent once the game starts. You want to have the best chances of beating your opponent, and that means thinking about every little detail during the deck building process, finding a reason why you have certain cards there, not only sides. Sides are, in my opinion, just a bit of a flavor, like a last sort of cherry on top of your cake once you are building a deck, and they do help a lot sometimes, but it is mostly about the rest of the deck and not playing bad sides. That's actually the truth about it. Okay? Now let's pay special attention to sets 11 plus, so the formats that from my perspective are now the most played are Expanded and War of the Rings Standard. So the sides change in a way that they don't any longer have a side number. What am I doing? Okay, War of the Rings Standard, this. So that means we are working with editions 11, 12, 13, and we take sides from those sets. We take cards from other sets as well, but we take sides only from these sets. Let's click on this deck right here. As you can see, there's no side number. Yeah? So there is only this symbol that it belongs to this sort of format, but there's no side number. Because the way this works is, let's say that my opponent wins the bid and he decides to go first, then once he is done with his fellowship phase, he's already played everything he wanted and he's ready to go. I am going to place the second side as usual because he is ahead, so he has to go through my dangerous territory as always, but I get to decide any of these 9 sides that I put on the adventure path. So let's say that my opponent paid a lot of Twilight and he has a lot of skirmish abilities, so I'm probably put on the adventure path a side that says skirmish special abilities cannot be used, because I'm going to try and kill him on that side too, where he gave me a lot of Twilight and he relies on skirmish special abilities heavily. So that's the way to think about it. Now we've dealt with that. I don't know, for example, Sauron killed 2 key companions, I'm happy. Then I move to this side and hopefully I don't have a strategy that relies on skirmish special abilities, especially on side 2, because if I do, then I shouldn't even be playing this sort of side and rely on it in that sort of a deck. Okay? Another important thing is the Twilight number. As you can see, there is nothing beyond 3. Everything is either 0, 1, 2 or 3 Twilight tokens worth, or it costs, all the way up to 3. The reason is that you also pay for regions. That means sites 1 to 3 you pay nothing, sites 4, 5, 6 you pay extra 3 Twilight tokens every time you move there. So on site 4 you pay for your fellowship, you pay for everything you played or summoned, and you also add 3 extra Twilight tokens because you are in the second region. And the same, but twice as much, goes for region number 3, where you pay extra 6 Twilight for being in the third region. This is very important because you always have to do your maths prior to putting the site on the adventure path. Let's say that your opponent has 0 burdens and he's just giving you 19 Twilight tokens, okay? By his fellowship, by whatever he played, and the only thing that is going to give any extra Twilight tokens is the site. So if your opponent gives you 19, or if he gives you, okay, let's do it properly, yeah? So he gave you 14 Twilight tokens by playing Gandalf, Radagast, I don't know, Elrond, and for example, Jarnsmith, whatever. He has five companions now in simple math. And therefore, you have 14 Twilight for those guys, 5 Twilight for the Fellowship, because he has 5 companions. And now the site is going to give you the final Twilight. If you put there a site that costs 0 and you have a Sauron in hand, you are not going to be able to play him. And this is really, it's such a bad feeling, because you could have crushed 2 companions easily at this point by playing Sauron. But you know, you saw a lot of Twilight, so you clicked there the first site that Gamp offered you, and now you can't kill your opponent. So what you do, I don't really have a way how to show you, but Gamp always shows you this sort of window with the sites that you can play. Obviously they are going to be the sites that you have in your adventure deck in the deck builder. So minimize it a little bit, just put it aside, look at the situation on board, count it carefully, and then decide how much Twilight and what side situationally you need, and only then play it, never in the opposite sequence, because you are going to suffer. That's the reason why this format is so complicated for some people, because they are used to just playing the game and not actually thinking about details in it, but details decide games. So it's something to keep in mind and be very careful about it, yeah? Other than that, same as always, I'm probably not going to play a site that helps Nazgul, because I don't play Nazgul, yeah? The only reason to play this would be that there would be no better alternative that costs 0, and I desperately need another site that costs 0. Okay? The last thing to remember is that since there are no side numbers, it means that you can only play 3 sides of each shadow number. So it means that you can play 3 sides that cost 0, 3 sides that cost 1, 2 and 3. So you cannot play just 9 sides that cost 3. Yeah? And that's how you manage your adventure deck. So I hope this was helpful. If there are any questions about it, just feel free to ask either in the comment section or in GAMP, whenever we play against each other, or some of you know me personally. My name is Jiří Kratina. I am the head of the Czech community of Lord of the Rings trading card game, and I wish you a lot of luck with this wonderful game, and I hope that you are more successful than you were before you watched this video.